The cold stars stretched endlessly around the aurora's dawn. Captain Mara Wren sat in the cockpit, her hands resting lightly on the console, her eyes scanning the empty void. Space was usually quiet, almost peaceful, but tonight it felt heavy. The crew had been on a routine cargo run through the neutral sectors, far from the busy trade routes, and the silence made her uneasy. "Captain, I'm picking up something on long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Cade, the ship's young but sharp navigator. His voice carried a mix of excitement and caution. Mara leaned forward. "Show me." A small dot appeared on the screen, drifting slowly. It wasn't moving under its own power. Cade adjusted the sensors and the details sharpened. The ship was alien, sleek, silver, and unlike anything in the human catalog, but it was clearly damaged. Smoke-like trails curled out of its engine ports and lights flickered across the hull. "Looks like it's been through a fight or an accident," Mara said quietly. The crew gathered behind her. Engineer Lyra frowned. "It's not in any shipping lane. Whoever was piloting it must have been stranded for days, maybe weeks." Mara's eyes narrowed. "We can't just ignore it. If we report it, the nearest fleet is at least 4 days away. That ship could break apart before anyone gets here." She paused. "We help." There were murmurs. Helping an alien ship was dangerous. The outer rim was filled with pirates and rogue factions. Some argued that a stray alien vessel could be a trap or worse, a lure. But Mara's decision was already made. Humans had a reputation for compassion, even in the cold void of space. She had seen her crew perform impossible repairs on Terran freighters under fire, and she trusted them to extend the same effort to this stranger. "Prepare an approach team," she ordered. "We board carefully, minimal risk. Lyra, get the repair drones ready. Cade, scan for any active defenses, and everyone else stay alert. This could get ugly fast." The crew worked efficiently. Humans were not the fastest species in the galaxy, but they were persistent, clever, and resilient. Mara felt pride swelling in her chest. No one worked like this for glory. They worked because it was the right thing to do. As the aurora's dawn drew near, the alien vessel loomed larger. Its hull was scarred and dented, but its design was breathtaking. Unlike human ships, which favored function over form, this ship moved with elegance, curves that suggested both speed and grace. The markings on its side shifted faintly, glowing symbols that Mara could not decipher. Cade frowned. "Captain, there's a faint life signature. Someone's still on board. They're alive." "Then we have no choice," Mara said firmly. "Let's move." The approach team, consisting of Mara, Cade, and 2 of the ship's security officers, donned their exosuits and boarded the alien vessel using the airlock ramps. The inside was dark, corridors flickering with dying power. Smoke drifted lazily through the hallways, and the faint hum of the ship's failing systems made the air tense. They found the alien in the bridge, slumped over its controls. Its body was slender and covered in smooth, metallic-like skin. Its eyes, large and expressive, opened slowly as they approached. "Can you understand me?" Mara asked, using the universal translator. The device had worked well with most species, but sometimes even it failed with new languages. The alien blinked twice. "Help, please," it whispered in a voice that carried both fear and exhaustion. Lyra immediately set to work, sending repair drones to patch the ship's engines and stabilize its life support. Cade ran scans, checking for lingering damage or hidden traps. Mara stayed with the alien, offering reassurance in the calmest voice she could muster. Hours passed. The repairs were slow, meticulous, and exhausting. The alien, whom Mara would later learn was Commander Trixa of the Xylan fleet, watched silently, sometimes helping where it could. Despite its injuries, there was intelligence in its gaze, an acknowledgement that humans had chosen to help when many others would have turned away. Finally, the engines roared back to life. Lights returned to the bridge in a steady, welcoming glow. Trixa's relief was palpable, and she spoke through the translator with effort. You helped us. when others would not. Mara smiled, brushing soot from her sleeve. Everyone deserves a chance. That's how we survive out here, by helping one another. Trixa tilted her head. One help may echo through eternity. Mara frowned. She didn't understand, but she didn't have to. The alien was leaving now, its ship slowly lifting from the dock. As the Aurora's Dawn moved away from the Xylan vessel, Mara felt a strange weight in her chest. There was a feeling that this encounter was not just a simple rescue, that somehow, far in the future, it might matter more than she could imagine. Back on their own ship, the crew cleaned up and prepared for departure. Mara looked around at her team, their faces tired but proud. Humans were not the strongest or fastest in the galaxy. They did not have the advanced shields or weaponry of other species. But they had courage, intelligence, and a willingness to act when others hesitated. Cade glanced at her, curiosity in his eyes. "Do you think that Xylan commander meant what she said?" Mara shook her head, smiling faintly. "Maybe, maybe not, but it doesn't matter. We did the right thing. That's enough for me." As the Aurora's Dawn jumped into faster-than-light travel, Mara allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. Space was vast and dangerous, full of unknown threats and mysterious civilizations. Yet humans had a spark that no machine or weapon could match, the spark of empathy. It was a simple truth, and one she carried with pride. That small act of helping a stranded alien might have seemed insignificant now, but Mara had a feeling it would resonate in ways she could not yet see. Across the stars, the Xylan ship drifted for a moment, its systems humming with life once more. Commander Trixa looked at the human crew through sensors, and her voice echoed silently across the void. "We owe you a debt. Remember this." Mara didn't hear it, but somehow, in the emptiness of space, a bond had formed, one that would ripple through time, long before the galaxy would call upon humanity to answer. And in that quiet corner of the universe, humans had once again proven that courage, empathy, and determination were worth more than any weapon, more than any technology. One act of help could change everything. The stars moved endlessly around the Aurora's Dawn, and Captain Mara Renz knew this was just the beginning of something far larger than herself. Something that would one day test the human spirit on a scale no one could yet imagine. For now, though, she allowed herself a quiet smile. They had helped a stranger, and that, she thought, was never wasted. Years had passed since the Aurora's Dawn had rescued the Xylan ship. Captain Mara Renz had risen through the ranks of the Terran fleet. Her name was known across trade routes and star systems, not just as a skilled captain, but as someone who acted with courage and compassion. She had fought pirates, navigated deadly space storms, and negotiated peace between warring colonies. Yet no experience had prepared her for what came next. It began as whispers in the communication channels. Terran convoys in the Syrian expanse reported being attacked, far from fleet support. These weren't simple raids, these were coordinated strikes. Entire sections of convoy were disappearing, and survivors spoke of overwhelming numbers. Mara sat in the command room of the Horizon's Edge, a sleek Terran frigate, her hands wrapped around a warm mug of synth coffee. She read the reports with growing concern. "This is different," she muttered. Her first officer, Lieutenant Cade, now older, sharper, and more confident, leaned over her shoulder. "They've outmaneuvered Terran tactics before," he asked. "Not like this," Mara said. "These attackers are precise, almost organized. Someone is behind this, but I don't know who or why." Before she could think further, an alert chimed. The comms officer reported, "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from an unknown source. The signal, it's alien." Mara leaned forward. "Patch it through." A holographic figure appeared on the screen. The tall, elegant form had metallic-like skin and eyes that seemed almost liquid in their expression. It was Xylan Commander Trixa. "Captain Mara Renz," Trixa said, her voice smooth and calm through the translator. "We have come to repay a debt. Your fleet is in danger and we will assist." Mara blinked. Why now? Because you helped us once long ago, Trixa replied. We remember every act of courage. Humanity's aid was unexpected, but it is never forgotten. Mara felt a chill. I don't know what to say. We didn't help for reward. We helped because it was the right thing. And that is why we trust you, Trixa said, her gaze sharpened. Others will join. You are not alone in this fight. Before Mara could respond, more signals arrived, other species, the same ones whose convoys had been helped indirectly by humans in minor disputes and trade negotiations over the years. Each offered aid, their ships already moving toward the Syrian expanse. The news spread quickly. Across the Terran fleet, captains received similar transmissions. Every act of kindness, every rescue, every shared supply years ago had created ripples in the galaxy. Now those ripples were returning, converging in Mara's favor. Mara called an emergency fleet meeting. We are not just facing raiders, she said, her voice steady but urgent. We are outnumbered, but we are not alone. Xylan ships and other allies from past encounters are converging on the expanse to support us. We must coordinate with them immediately. Lieutenant Cade looked skeptical. Coordinate with aliens. Mara, some of these species are temperamental. They don't trust humans easily. Mara smiled faintly. They trust us because we acted without expecting anything in return. That's different from diplomacy or negotiation. They know we are reliable. The fleet mobilized. Ships of human and alien design cut through the void with precision. Mara's experience and leadership were critical. Every movement was planned, every alliance carefully considered. Yet despite the growing support, the Terran convoy remained under siege. Raiders had already cornered several vessels near the Gliese Nebula, and time was short. Mara's ship arrived at the edge of the conflict. Fires from destroyed vessels glowed in the dark, and distant laser bursts lit the void like distant stars. She took a deep breath. Prepare the fleet. We strike in coordination with our allies. Everyone follow my lead. The Xylan ships arrived first, their engines glowing with quiet elegance. Mara watched them dance through the battlefield, precise and deadly. Other species joined, some with shields that shimmered like glass, others with weapons that twisted light into cutting beams. It was breathtaking and terrifying. The raiders, seeing these reinforcements, seemed momentarily hesitant, but their leader, a hulking alien warlord named Varkal, was ruthless. He barked orders and his fleet surged forward. Mara knew this battle would not be simple. As the fight began, the human ships revealed their strength, not in raw firepower but in tactics. Humans were nimble, resourceful, and willing to take risks other species avoided. Mara's fleet weaved through the enemy lines, exploiting gaps, setting traps, and guiding alien allies with precise maneuvers. "Captain, the raiders are adapting," Cade shouted. "They've learned our patterns." "Then we change patterns," Mara said calmly. "Humans improvise. Watch and follow." Using small but daring strikes, the humans drew the raiders into Xylan ambushes. The Terran ships acted as bait, luring enemies toward hidden allies. Ships that had been crippled were repaired in real time by drones and alien engineers, keeping the line steady. Amid the chaos, Mara received a private message from Commander Trixa. "Your ingenuity amazes me, Captain. Humans truly are remarkable. This is why we repay our debts." Mara allowed herself a brief smile, then refocused. The fight was far from over. The raiders' numbers were overwhelming, but with each passing minute, the human-led alliance gained the upper hand. Hours dragged by. Explosions rocked distant ships, lasers tore through hulls, and the vacuum of space glowed with fire and energy. Yet the humans and their allies pressed on, coordination improving with each maneuver. Terran captains who had once faced small skirmishes now directed entire multi-species formations with confidence and clarity. And then, as Mara predicted, a turning point arrived. The raiders had become reckless, overconfident in their numerical advantage. Humans exploited it, flanking their ships with alien allies who struck with precision. Varkel's flagship was caught off guard, and the combined force of humans and Xylan tore through its defenses. From Mara's perspective on the bridge, the destruction of the flagship was a signal, a sign that victory, though hard-earned, was possible. Ships that had been cornered were freed, and the remaining raiders scattered, retreating into the dark void. "Captain, we did it," Cade said, awe in his voice. "We actually did it." Mara didn't celebrate yet. Battles were won in moments, but victories were measured in the lives saved and alliances strengthened. She looked at the alien commanders, all of whom met her gaze with respect. "Today," she said, voice firm and commanding, "humans were not just fighters. We were leaders, partners, and friends. And that," she gestured to the fleet around them, "is why we endure." Commander Trix's image flickered once more. "Your actions have reminded the galaxy why humanity matters. We owe a debt that spans the stars. Remember this, Captain Mara Renz. One help may echo through eternity." Mara nodded. "I remember." As the human-led fleet regrouped, repair teams patched up damaged vessels, and alien captains exchanged information and gratitude. For the first time, Mara felt the full weight of what had happened. Years ago, a simple decision to help a stranded ship had created a ripple across the galaxy. That ripple had returned now, saving countless lives and cementing humanity's place among the stars. Yet, even in this victory, Mara knew the danger was not over. The raiders had been organized, not random. Someone or something was orchestrating these attacks, and that larger threat, still hidden in the darkness of space, could return at any time. But for now, humanity had shown its worth, not just through firepower or technology, but through courage, compassion, and cleverness. Humans had once again proven that they were a species to be reckoned with, and the galaxy had taken notice. Mara watched as allied ships departed, returning to their territories with quiet pride. The Xylan lingered for a moment, their sensors scanning the Terran fleet before giving a final nod. One act of help, one decision. One spark of human courage had grown into a force that could influence the galaxy. Mara allowed herself a rare smile, knowing the story was far from over, but that humanity's spirit would continue to shine, no matter what challenges lay ahead. And in the silence after the battle, Mara heard it clearly in her heart. One act of kindness could echo through eternity. White heavy checkmark word count. ~1, 520. The calm after the battle in the Syrian expanse was short-lived. Captain Mara Renz stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, her gaze fixed on the swirling nebula ahead. The fleet had won the skirmish against the raiders, but her instincts told her this was only the beginning. Something bigger, more dangerous, waited in the darkness beyond the stars. Lieutenant Cade approached, his face tense. "Captain, I've been analyzing the raider patterns. They weren't random attacks, they were probes, testing our reactions, our coordination. Whoever sent them, they're studying us." Mara's jaw tightened. "Exactly what I feared. They'll be back and stronger. We need to prepare and fast." The Xylan fleet, still nearby, hovered silently. Commander Trix's image appeared on Mara's console. "You predicted correctly." The raiders were only scouts. The true force lies beyond the nebula of shadows. Their numbers and technology far exceed what you have faced so far. Mara's eyes narrowed. "Then we fight smarter. We use every advantage humanity has, and every ally willing to stand with us." The fleet began to strategize. Humans may not have had the most advanced technology, but they had creativity, adaptability, and courage. And this time, they were not alone. Xylan ships, the Lurani stealth cruisers, and even the heavy artillery vessels of the Kravari were ready to join forces. Mara moved among the crews, her presence steadying their nerves. "Listen carefully," she said. "This isn't just about firepower. It's about tactics, coordination, and knowing the enemy better than they know us. Humans improvise. We adapt. That's how we survive." The alien captains nodded, some silently, some openly. They respected her, not just for her victories, but for the way she inspired those around her. Humans led with courage, and courage spread. When the fleet approached the nebula of shadows, sensors flickered and readings became unreliable. The hidden threat waited within the swirling gas clouds. Mara's heart pounded as she stared at the space ahead. The raiders had been only a test. Now the real battle began. Suddenly, sensor alarms blared. Massive ships emerged from the nebula, far larger than any Mara had seen. Their hulls were jagged and black, absorbing light, with weapons that glowed with deadly intensity. This was the true raider force, or perhaps something even older and more sinister. Varkal, the raider warlord, was present, but clearly not in command. Mara realized immediately someone or something was leading these forces, and the stakes had just risen. "Positions," she shouted. "Humans first, allies in formation, cover our flanks. We fight together." The first volleys of energy lit up the nebula. Mara's fleet dodged and weaved, Terran ships using speed and agility to draw enemy fire while allies struck from angles the attackers did not expect. The humans were small, yes, but clever, and their movements were unpredictable. Cade called out, "Captain, the enemy is adapting." "They've learned some of our patterns from the previous skirmish," Mara's mind raced. "Then we evolve faster than they do. Signal all ships. We'll rotate positions randomly. Humans improvise, every captain follow your instincts." The battle became chaotic. Explosions tore through the darkness. Alien ships fired massive energy beams while Terran fighters darted in and out of the shadows. Mara watched the battlefield like a conductor, guiding her fleet with intuition and experience. A Lurani stealth cruiser flanked a group of massive raider ships, disabling their shields in a coordinated strike. Kravari artillery opened fire from the edge of the nebula, carving swaths of destruction. And humans, small but daring, exploited every weakness they could find, baiting enemies, performing risky maneuvers, and rescuing damaged Allied ships in real time. Hours passed, the battle swinging like a pendulum. Mara's heart pounded, sweat forming on her brow. But every time despair threatened, humans found a way to turn the tide. They used the terrain of the nebula, the weaknesses in enemy formation, and sheer ingenuity to outmaneuver forces that were far larger and stronger. Then, the turning point came. Mara noticed the enemy command ship, massive and imposing, lurking at the back of the fleet. Every movement of the raider forces seemed to originate from it. She realized that if they could take it down, the rest of the fleet would falter. "Prepare a strike team," she commanded. "Small, fast ships. We target the command vessel directly. Humans lead." Lieutenant Cade's eyes widened. "It's suicidal, Captain." Mara smiled faintly, the kind of smile that inspired loyalty. "Then it's the kind of move humans are good at. We adapt. We survive. We win." The strike team, composed of Terran pilots and their alien allies, darted through the battlefield. Mara's ship led the way, weaving between fire and debris, dodging massive blasts with uncanny precision. The human pilots coordinated attacks that seemed reckless to anyone else, but every move had purpose. They reached the command ship, and Mara ordered synchronized volleys, timed with alien support. Shields faltered, armor cracked, and the massive vessel began to falter. From Mara's viewpoint, it felt almost impossible. Too many enemies, too much firepower. But the team pushed forward. With a final, daring maneuver, Mara's ship and the Allied strike force struck the command ship at multiple points simultaneously. Energy cascaded across its hull, systems overloaded, and the massive vessel erupted in a storm of fire and debris. The enemy fleet faltered instantly. Without their leader, coordination fell apart. Mara's fleet pressed the advantage, striking with precision. Raider ships that had seemed unstoppable moments ago now scattered, retreating in disarray. When the battle ended, silence fell across the nebula. Mara's crew cheered quietly, exhausted but alive. They had faced a threat larger than anything they could have imagined, and had won. Commander Trix's holographic form appeared once more. Humans, you have exceeded even our expectations. Your courage, ingenuity, and unity are remarkable. You are the spark the galaxy needs. Mara shook her head, still catching her breath. We didn't do this alone. Every ally, every captain, human and alien, made this possible. But yes, humans adapt, humans endure, and we never give up. The alien captains nodded. Respect and something else, trust, shone in their expressions. Humanity had proven, again, that they were not just survivors, but leaders. As Mara looked at the battlefield, the fire of victory reflected in her eyes, she realized something profound. The galaxy had underestimated humans for far too long. They had relied on brute strength, fear, and intimidation. But humans relied on something else: courage, empathy, and cleverness. And now those qualities had not only saved lives, they had inspired allies, built trust across species, and turned the tide of war. Yet Mara knew this was not the end. Somewhere beyond the stars, greater challenges awaited. But humans were ready. They had proven that even when outnumbered, they could think faster, act smarter, and fight harder than anyone expected. She allowed herself a quiet smile, a moment of pride. Humans had once helped a stranded alien ship years ago, and now the galaxy had returned the favor, not just in strength, but in respect, unity, and loyalty. One small act of courage had grown into a force that could shape the future. As the fleet regrouped, Mara felt the weight of what had been accomplished. Humans were no longer just participants in galactic affairs, they were a beacon, a species that could inspire, lead, and endure. Commander Trix's words echoed in Mara's mind. One help may echo through eternity. And Mara knew, without a doubt, that humanity's echo was only beginning. The galaxy had changed. The news of the Terran fleet's triumph in the Syrian expanse spread like wildfire through star systems. Stories of Captain Mara Renz and her crew were told in every trade station, colony, and fleet base. Humans were no longer underestimated. They were respected, admired, and, in some cases, even feared, for all the right reasons. Yet Mara knew that the battles they had fought were only the beginning. The raiders had been a test, and the hidden forces behind them were still out there. She stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, staring at the expanse of stars. This time, it was not just a mission of survival. It was a mission to show what humanity could truly accomplish. "Captain," Lieutenant Cade said, stepping forward, "we're receiving multiple transmissions. Ships from systems we helped in the past, all offering assistance. It's massive. Hundreds of vessels are responding." Mara allowed herself a small, proud smile. Years ago, a single act of kindness toward a stranded Xylan ship had sparked ripples across the galaxy. Now, those ripples had become a tide, a force willing to fight alongside humanity. "Prepare a fleet-wide coordination," she ordered. "Every Terran captain, every willing ally will meet at the Korean Junction. We need to plan for the next stage." The Korean Junction was a neutral system, perfect for strategy and regrouping. Ships arrived steadily: sleek Xylan frigates, massive Kravari artillery cruisers, and nimble Lurani stealth craft. Human captains took positions alongside their allies, coordinating movements, weapons, and defenses with precision. Mara addressed the fleet through the universal channel. "We have been tested, and we have passed, but now we face the true threat, a force that hides in the shadows, seeking to dominate the galaxy through fear and destruction. They underestimate us, as many have. But humans are resourceful, adaptable, and courageous. Today we will prove it again. Today we fight not for ourselves, but for every life in the galaxy that depends on freedom." The fleet responded with a unified cheer, a sound that resonated even through the silence of space. Mara felt her chest swell with pride. Humans had inspired loyalty not through intimidation, but through courage and compassion. "Enemy fleet detected," Cade reported. They are larger than we expected. They're approaching Korean Junction from multiple angles. Mara's eyes hardened. Then we divide and conquer. Xylan on the left flank, Kravari heavy support in the center, Lurani stealth on the right. Humans, we adapt as the situation changes. Stay unpredictable. The battle began with a blinding display of energy and motion. Enemy ships fired massive beams, tearing through the void, but the Allied fleet moved as one. Humans darted between fire, drawing attention and creating openings for allies to strike. Mara's strategy relied not on brute force, but ingenuity. She sent small Terran strike teams into the densest parts of the enemy formation, targeting command nodes and shield generators. The Xylan and Kravari followed her cues, delivering devastating coordinated strikes. Amid the chaos, Mara observed a familiar pattern. The enemy, confident in their numbers, underestimated the human ability to improvise. They had expected humans to fall into predictable traps. Instead, humans led their allies in maneuvers that no one else anticipated, turning the battlefield into a maze only they could navigate effectively. "Captain," Cade shouted, "the enemy flagship is moving toward the junction's core. They plan to destroy it." Mara's mind raced. The Korean junction was critical. Destroying it would isolate human and allied fleets, cutting off reinforcements. She needed a bold plan. "Humans lead a decoy strike," Mara commanded. "We draw the flagship away while our allies take out their support vessels." Timing is everything. Trust each other. Trust yourself. Small Terran ships zipped forward, baiting the massive flagship into pursuit. The alien allies held back, waiting for the perfect moment. The humans weaved through enemy fire, dodging impossible volleys and luring the enemy closer to a prepared trap. "Now!" Mara shouted. The Allied fleet struck simultaneously. Xylan energy beams tore through the enemy flanks, Kravari heavy fire blasted shields, and Lurani stealth craft appeared from hidden angles, striking command systems directly. The flagship faltered under the onslaught, its armor breached in multiple places. Mara's ship led a final assault, delivering the decisive blow to the enemy command corps. The massive vessel erupted in a storm of fire and debris, signaling the collapse of the enemy fleet. Remaining raiders scattered, their coordination destroyed. Silence fell across the junction. Mara looked around at the fleet, countless ships, human and alien, battered but intact. The victory was hard-earned, and every captain understood the cost and the value of unity. Commander Trix's hologram appeared one final time. "Humans, your actions have changed the course of the galaxy. You fight not only with strength but with intelligence, courage, and compassion. This is the true power of your species." Mara allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. They had faced impossible odds, yet humans had prevailed, not because of technology, not because of numbers, but because of character. Humanity had earned respect, and in doing so had inspired loyalty that spanned star systems. Across the galaxy, Terran captains received messages from allies. The Xylan, Lurani, Kravari, and many others pledged support for future Terran endeavors. One small act of help years ago had become a legacy, a force that could never be ignored. Mara stood at the observation deck, gazing at the stars. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of uncertainty. But she knew one thing: humanity had proven itself. Courage, kindness, and intelligence could create alliances that even the strongest fleets could not break. Lieutenant Cade joined her quietly. "Captain, do you think they'll remember us? The debt you saved years ago?" Mara smiled softly. "They already have. One act of help echoes longer than we can imagine. Humanity has shown its worth. And we will continue to do so wherever the galaxy needs us." The stars stretched infinitely, silent witnesses to humanity's rise. Mara felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had fought bravely, led with honor, and inspired a galaxy. The debt had been repaid, not just to humans but to every life saved, every ally strengthened, and every heart inspired. And somewhere out there, in distant systems across the galaxy, other Terran captains were already responding, answering the call with courage, ingenuity, and the same human spirit that had once helped a stranded alien ship. Mara knew that the galaxy would remember this day, and humanity's reputation would endure. They were survivors, innovators, and leaders. They were a species that acted when others would hesitate, that inspired loyalty through compassion, and that never, ever gave up. She turned back to the bridge, where her crew worked tirelessly, coordinating repairs, maintaining defenses, and preparing for whatever came next. They had faced the impossible and won, and this was only the beginning. In the distance, the remnants of the enemy fleet drifted, defeated but a reminder that vigilance was never optional. Mara smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Humanity had shown its strength, not just in war but in character. One act of help long ago had grown into a legacy that now spanned the galaxy. And Mara Renz, along with every Terran captain who would follow, knew that humanity would continue to answer the call, because that was what they did. That was who they were. And the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter, bearing witness to humanity's rise.